what you're going to hear from today is sort of a list of pretty much the A-list of larger companies in the eye space that are usually going to be the buyers of the technologies. So sooner or later, we're going to be negotiating with some of the venture-backed companies and competing with each other. So it's pretty fun to be here together because they always tell us who they're talking to. If they're not getting cooperation from our company, they let us know that they're getting cooperation from someone down the street. So this should be a helpful meeting. Another thing we're going to change up here is that we didn't collect questions this time, but the goal will be to, based on the amount of time at the end, to just sort of ask questions. People raise their hands. That's kind of the goal here. We're going to go through a few slides with some introductions, and then I'm going to give a couple slides as backdrop for talking points, and then the goal here is really to get an interactive Q&A session. So as you can see, here's the overview. We're going to start out with panel introductions, and then we're going to talk a little bit. Each panelist is going to sort of talk about their company and kind of their mission statement, things they want to get out to the audience. And then following that, we're going to go into a few slides from Bausch & Lomb, and then I'm going to follow up with a few slides from Allergan, and then the panelists will comment on the slides as they come up. So this is a pretty loose format. First up, we have Tracy. And she submitted a high-resolution photo, so she looks great. So, okay, Tracy, it's Tracy's from Pfizer, and she's going to open up a few statements.
So I just want to thank the organizers for inviting me and Pfizer to be here today. It's been actually an exciting, very informative meeting. Charlie asked me to talk about our philosophy regarding exit partnerships. So obviously, dry eye, we consider it to be one of the areas of unmet need amongst some of the other disease areas in the retinal and glaucoma space that we're trying to solve for and bring innovative products to market. So when we talk about success in our future, we really talk about it in the sense of being good partners and working with the community out there doing good work in this space. So we actually carve out our partnership strategy by the research space. So some novel compounds working with our research colleagues in the preclinical space. That's separate from the conversation that we're having today, which is really more about bringing forward something that has some signs of clinical evidence. So, Emmett brought up the panel that happened back in October, and I was one of those individuals, along with Charlie, who said, what kind of data do you need to see? And so it is that amount of, at this point, some sense of clinical evidence that we're moving in the right direction and trying to solve for some of the complexities that we've seen today. So on the converse of what some of the partners bring to us, what we offer out really is the ability to have strong clinical development. My partner in crime, David Eveleth, many of you know, he leads our development efforts in our La Jolla facility. He's really an expert in the field, and I'm very fortunate to have him as a partner. But then also from our commercialization, our arms and legs on the ground, we exist all over the world and have the capabilities to actually bring these compounds, these new drugs, to as many patients as possible. So we consider ourselves a partner that we like to work in the spirit of openness, transparency, and communication, and we really look forward to a promising future of partnerships with a lot of you.
Next, we have Jean-Michel Rees from Alcon.
Definitively not high resolution.
Much better in person. Much better in person.
So I'm kind of the outlier representing Alcon here because I'm more from the scientific side. So I will be the skeptic looking at data that will be presented to us, and we can certainly have that discussion in more detail. At the same time, as you know, Alcon is certainly a major player in the eye space, and we dedicated to be really focused in the eye. Specifically in R&D, we have one flavor, is we're really focusing on the unmet medical need, and our motto is that the patients are waiting. So we are very, very focused in bringing new technologies, new products, both from the surgical, the pharmaceutical, or the OTC into the patient hands and the fastest and most efficient way. In the last few years, we really drastically changing also our perception of our portfolio. If we want to stay the best player in the field, we certainly need to look at increasing our portfolio drastically. And that has triggered two things, an internal look at our portfolio, but also opening our door to the outside world and really working much more collaboratively with people outside. We don't believe that we own innovation internally, and we certainly needs to be much more receptive on what's happening on the outside. And I think we've made great stride in that area, as you can see in the last pretty much 18 months, the number of deals that we've done, both in the pharma and on the surgical side. At the same time, a lot of those activities are really collaborative, and it means that there is a certain level of risk sharing, and certainly that will be something that we'll need to discuss. The previous panel on VC hit really on a lot of the hot buttons, is what is the level of data that we need, when do we want to have those data, and sometimes we want to share the risk that we still see remaining on those data, and hopefully we'll have a continued discussion on those topics later on. And the expectations also at different stage of development are extremely varied and difficult sometimes to reconcile.
Next up we have David Muth from Bausch & Lomb Pharmaceuticals, and David also spent the time, put together a few slides as well, which will be a nice segue into the mid portion of the talk.
All right, thanks everybody. And again, thank you to the organizers and Bausch & Lomb. We're very proud to be one of the sponsors here for this, what I think is a fantastic seminar. So what I've got is two parts to my presentation. I'm going to give a little bit of background. Some may characterize it as a commercial about Bausch & Lomb, and then what I wanted to do is give a little overview of some of the deals and some deal statistics, focusing not so much in terms of dry eye, but more in terms of ophthalmology. So in terms of Bausch & Lomb, the company was founded in 1853, and the corporate headquarters are in Rochester, New York. However, a dramatic change took place at the end of 2007, early 2008, when Bausch & Lomb was acquired by Warburg Pincus. And so we really look at ourselves as a 160-year-old startup company. And by that, what I mean is that there will be a liquidity event in our future at some point in time. I mean, historically, Warburg has looked at a 5 to 7 year time frame, and so we're looking at the capital markets. We're looking at some kind of event in the 13 to 15 time frame. So part of our presentation is we're on the same side with a lot of you out here in the audience. So one of the other things that has happened quite dramatically is I've got here the senior level of the organization of Bausch & Lomb, and 2 points is that since Warburg has taken over, there is not an individual at the senior vice president, executive vice president level or above that is at Bausch & Lomb presently well, it isn't new in the last 2 years, let's put it that way. So pretty significant change. And here you see the senior management team, and just recently we're quite pleased to have announced that Fred Hassan has joined our company as the chairman of the board, and I'm sure a lot of you know Fred's reputation in terms of the industry. But one of the big changes also that occurred was Bausch & Lomb became quite decentralized after the Warburg acquisition. So we're very focused in terms of pharmaceuticals, surgical, as well as vision care. And so this next slide just talks about the breadth of the product line. And as a private company, we've got the broadest portfolio of eye care products. I mean, my friend here at the end is a public company, probably rivals our portfolio, but from a private company, we've got the broadest portfolio. So again, all three of us up here are also pitching for you because we'd like to be your partner of choice. Clearly, we've got global capabilities, both from a R&D as well as a manufacturing across the globe. Commercially, same thing. We've got global footprint on the commercial side. And so I just want to give you a sense in terms of, we think we're quite active in terms of the deal space. And these are deals we've done in the last 12 months. And so starting from the top, this was a phase 2 compound we acquired from a public French company called Nicox. This is a glaucoma compound. We've licensed the worldwide opportunity. The next one is a regional ophthalmology company which we acquired this summer, and again, so it's mostly European focused, but we do intend to take some of those products from Europe and exploit them across the globe. The third opportunity is a well-known NSAID, Bromfenac, which a private company in Europe had the rights to, and we licensed those commercial rights again for Europe. The last one, Bausch & Lomb entered into quite a significant co-promotion with Pfizer probably the biggest co-promotion in the ophthalmology space earlier this year. And last one is a preclinical deal that we just announced a couple weeks ago. And so the point I want to make is that we're very active in the space. We do late-stage deals. Obviously, they have a priority, but we also do preclinical things and co-promotions. So that's enough with the commercial. Now what I'd like to do is I've prepared a couple of slides, and you can certainly interpret the data. So what I've done here is I've looked at the deals for the last 5 years, okay? And I've broken them out for ophthalmology, oncology, and dermatology to kind of give you a perspective in terms of what's the ophthalmology space relative to these other two markets. So overall, we looked at 387 deals, and you can see on the left side, ophthalmology is about 10% over this 5-year period in terms of these deals. Total 39 deals were ophthalmology, 32 were licensed, and 7 were acquisitions. If you look at 2009, those statistics fairly much held constant, whereas ophthalmology still makes about, with those other two comparative segments, about 10% of the deals. But the one point I think that is positive for the ophthalmology space is that if you look at that, there were a total of 6 deals, but 3 of them were liquidity events for companies. And so one of the messages, I know the VC panel before us, there were some tough, I guess, messages delivered, but clearly a 50% liquidity event rate is quite significant, and certainly that is not the rate that you see across other therapeutic areas. So what we've done here is if we looked at deal sizes by stage, I don't think there's anything that's completely earth-shaking here, but you see deals appreciate in terms of value as they move forward. And again, there was a comment made that at the phase 2 is where really where the greatest value is created. And that was touched on some of the VCs. And actually, one also could draw the conclusion is that the real good assets are partnered by phase 2. So the next slide breaks out the deals between between milestones and upfront payments, and then you see at the bottom you see the number of deals by stage of development. So we've looked at the recent VC deals over the last year, and what we're attempting to do here is what is the multiple step up from the investors from the investors' point of view. So looking at it for all deals as well as ophthalmology deals. So from the upfronts across all the deals that were done in terms of 2009, it's a 2x step up for the upfront payments, and the overall deal is about a little better than 6x in terms of multiple. Ophthalmology a little worse in terms of upfronts, but still it's close to 1.9 in terms of a multiple on the upfronts, and then total deals are 7.5. And so that's information. I just try to put it in perspective. The takeaway is I still think ophthalmology is a very attractive space. Obviously, we're biased. We are an eye care company, and again, the end game here is liquidity. And I think based upon 2009. This is a pretty hot area.
Okay, great. So now we're going to segue into the next section of the talk. First thing I want to talk about is just some of the high-level issues. As you can hear from the VC panel, I don't need to rehash all that, but there's still a lot of challenges in the global financial system. We were in a double bubble from the tech boom to the short-term bust, and then we went into another once-in-a-lifetime kind of bubble, which affected everything from real estate to biotech companies ultimately. And then you had a crash of that, and then all of a sudden a bunch of cash got sucked out of the system overnight. As you can see, when we do drug development, it's 5-10 to understand dry eye. It's a 20-year process, and VCs kind of had their models built around that. Pharma companies had their models, though we're always worried about patent expiries and things like that. And then overnight, things really, really changed rapidly, and now people are trying to restructure models